So as Jesus passed by, he saw a man. He noticed him. Now, what happens in verse 2 is the disciples ask Jesus a question about this man. But Jesus doesn't notice him because the disciples asked a question. Rather, Jesus notices him, and then the disciples, seeing that Jesus has taken note or has stopped and is looking at this man, then they ask this question. And the man that Jesus has noticed is someone who's been blind from birth. Someone who would not have been able in that culture, in that society, to have a job like someone who is blind today might be able to have. Most likely he spent his time begging. And he would have been somebody that people in culture would have overlooked. He would have been someone that in culture people would have just maybe dropped a few coins in his cup or in his plate as they went by, but they didn't really notice him. And it might be that you're here today and you can identify with being the black sheep of the family. That you've kind of been the one who's always been the outcast, or you have been overlooked, or you felt out of place, or you've been the last one picked on a team. You've felt like you have been not seen. And people would have not seen this man. Just as people who struggle with disabilities are often unseen in our culture today, we tell our children don't stare at people that are different, and what happens is we teach them to not notice those around them that are different. We're afraid that we'll say the wrong thing, and so we don't say anything at all. And what many people who struggle with disabilities want is they just want to be seen and treated normally. And so here this man that probably would have been overlooked by most, but Jesus sees him and steps into the story of his life. And if you were the black sheep of your family, or you have been overlooked, or you have not been noticed, I want you to know that Jesus sees you. And we try to make sure that everyone who walks in the door feels welcome at our church, but even if we miss you, Jesus sees you. And not only does he see you, he knows you. Jesus would say that out in the forest, so in your mind's eye, picture a forest that is out there in the wilderness that you've never been to, and in that forest is a tree that you've never seen, and in that tree there is a small sparrow, a bird that before this moment you'd have no reason to have pictured them, and that sparrow falls from that tree. Jesus says that a sparrow in the forest cannot fall from a tree without him knowing. And so if Jesus has taken note of that bird, he takes note of you. In fact, he says that he knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows more about you than you know about you. So Jesus sees you, and you're known. And then Jesus goes even beyond that because he tells us a story in Luke 15 that he says that I am like a shepherd who has 100 sheep. And if one of those 100 sheep goes missing, I will leave the 99 in the fold, in the pen, and I will go searching for the one. If a shepherd has 100 sheep, he'll notice one missing. Listen, I've got 2 kids, and I'm doing good just to keep track of those 2. Some of you are looking at me judgmental. I know that you've forgotten your kids' places, okay? Jesus says, I will leave the 99 in the sheepfold, and I will go searching for that one. I will go searching for the lost lamb. I will call his name. I will find him and bring him back rejoicing. Not only does Jesus see you, not only does he know you, he's looking for you. He's calling for you. And for some of your family and friends, it might shock them to know that you're at church today, but it doesn't surprise God at all. He's been looking forward to this moment. He's been expecting you. He's been looking.